Hello, I'm Theolyn Cortens. Welcome to my Sticky Buds video 2020. And I'm going to use this particular opportunity to answer some questions I've been receiving from some of my followers. So one of the questions is, do I still work with angels? Well, the quick answer to that would be everything I do, all the courses I've been doing for many decades have all come out of my direct communication with the celestial realms where the angels hang out. So that's the quick answer. The longer answer is perhaps to share some of my story and about how I came to do this work and how each stage has been a progression towards what I'm teaching at the moment, the Shefa Method. And that will also give me the opportunity to answer another question which I received recently from somebody who's working through the Shefa Method course. Now, this student asked me a very specific question about the characters that are used in the Shefa Method, because they're very similar, but not the same, as the characters that appear in my deck of cards called the Angel Script. So as you follow the history of how things have unfolded over the years, through the messages I've received and the teachings that I've been putting out, that question will also be answered. In 1974, I learned Transcendental Meditation, and this led to a dramatic spiritual illumination that really set me on my path. A few years later, in 1980, I learnt some advanced meditation techniques that are called siddhis, one of which focused on knowing the stars and the planets. I was already an astrologer, so this siddhi called to me especially. Now, after practicing for a few months, I met my first angel during meditation. Angels had never been my focus at all. I hadn't come from a Christian background. I didn't think about angels. So I was very puzzled by this. I did some research, and the appearance of this beautiful character in my meditation, who I've tried to show in this card image, which comes from the Angel Script pack. This character led me to realise he was an archangel, specifically from the Jewish mystical tradition. His name is Sandalphon, and Sandalphon is one of the archangels on the Tree of Life. In the Tree of Life system in Kabbalah, every blossom, or jewel as they're sometimes called, on the tree is a gateway to a new state of consciousness, and each gate is guarded by an archangel. I quickly realised these guardians are the same archetypes described as the gods of the planets. My meditation siddhi had opened me to direct knowledge. I was meeting the spirits of the planets. Now, I don't have time to cover all those archangels, but here are some who will be familiar to you. Gabriel is the spirit of the planet Mercury. Now, some writers suggest, and you may have heard, that Gabriel is the spirit of the moon, but my experience tells me otherwise. And it does make sense that he's mercurial, because all the stories about Gabriel are about him delivering messages. He delivers a message to Mary, he delivers a message to Muhammad. And some writers describe Gabriel as feminine, but like the planet Mercury, Gabriel crosses over male-female descriptions. His colours are pale green and yellow. Raphael's name means healing of God. I find this archangel quite feminine. I found her to be the spirit of Venus, who is benevolent and soothing. Raphael brings physical healing, but also releases old karmas and can bring wealth. Her colours are soft pinks and lilac. Michael's name means like unto God. Michael is usually thought of as masculine, often seen wearing armour. Michael rules the sun and is a seraph as well as an archangel. So his colours are golden yellow and sometimes some red. Certainly not blue, which you may come across in other card decks. If you want to explore the archangels further, you could read my book, Working with Archangels. My inner work with the archangels during the 1980s, for nearly a whole decade, led me to eventually uncover a previous life I'd had in ancient Babylon. And I was led to a mystical alphabet called the Writing of the Angels. In this old carving, you will see the sun represented by an image that I've chosen to be the logo for the Shefa Method. The sun is ruled by Michael, who alongside Zadkiel, the archangel for Jupiter, overlights my teaching work. In 1996, I was led to find this alphabet with 23 characters, all named after Hebrew letters. I researched the history and came to discover the Jewish people had been exiled to Babylon around 2,500 years ago, and a great deal of their mystical ideas were picked up during that time. I was immediately drawn to meditate on the characters. They seemed to buzz with light and energy. And during 2-hour sessions before dawn each day, I received a series of channeled messages, having never channeled anything before. The messages were published in 1997, along with a deck of 36 cards showing all the characters and the archangels. A second edition was published in 2004, and it seems likely a third will be needed before very long. The mainstream publishers found it too esoteric, so we published it ourselves, and it's been distributed on a very small scale, but people who find it keep it for years and call it their go-to deck for wise advice. In 2003, the UK publisher Piarcus published Living with Angels, and they've kept this book in print for all these years, so it has become a classic for beginners. So now perhaps you can begin to see how the angelic inspirations were always leading me forward, always giving me new information to deal with, and I was always trying to find new ways to deliver it to you in the world. For me, the most important thing was to bridge the gap between heaven and earth, to find out what our heavenly magical possibilities are, and then ground them, bring them out into the world, so that we can all start to build heaven on earth. So let's go on with the story. Once my inner channels were open, there seemed to be a limitless treasure trove of wisdom that I could access. Around 2001, I was drawn to experiment with another mystical alphabet. Similar characters to the ones in the Writing of Angels, but these are simpler in their patterns. And often it seems quite obvious what their connection with the Hebrew letters might be. Here's an example. The character Shin from the celestial writing and the Hebrew letter Shin. And I got the impression that this alphabet, the celestial writing, was vibrating at a faster speed than the writing of the angels. I find these characters carry energy from the first world of creation, the dimension of the fiery seraphim, whereas the writing of the angels carries archangelic energy from the second world of air. The information I received from each of the celestial characters was very brief, just 2 words for each, such as angel blessings, or disciplined focus, or deep peace. And this new information made me realise the characters could be used for personal development, for the release of limiting karmic patterns, and for healing. They encourage the flow of Shefa, which is a Hebrew word meaning everflow. So Shefa is very much like chi or ki in Oriental medicine. It's universal energy. In 2006, I trained the first people to use Shefa characters in a healing modality. And this training will be available again in 2021 in the Shefa Practitioner course. In 2009, another channel opened, and I received messages from 12 discarnate beings calling themselves Nephilim. If you research the Nephilim, you will find very negative stories. But my information is that they were not wicked, fallen angels. These were angels who descended to live as humans to support our evolution. Some of them are mentioned in biblical stories. One of them was Noah. They were reputed to live many, many years, much longer than we live nowadays. So there was something really extraordinary and special about them. And they have been acting as my mentors while I've been developing the Shefa Method, which is designed to support personal spiritual evolution and karmic healing. So that was a very quick overview of a very long story that's been going on for several decades. And I hope it's answered some of your questions. I am focused on delivering the Shefa Method at present, so angel courses are on the sideline, but they may come back at some point. You can learn the Shefa Method at home, entirely on your own, and I would love you to get going on that as soon as possible. At this time in history, really important for as many people as possible to be meditating, getting into that deep, quiet space. Over the next few years, I'm hoping to attract people who want to learn the healing modality and perhaps to go on to become teachers with me. So I'd love to hear from you if that calls.